are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the November 13th meeting for the Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Okay. So, Attorney Hale, would you like to call this workshop to order?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll welcome everyone to the workshop of the Board of Zoning Appeals held today, November 13th, 2025, pursuant to prior publication of notice. It is approximately 1 p.m. and I'm calling to order, and I call roll call. Deborah Vance, Ricky Jackson, Brian Groves, here. Kathy Stransky,
Here.
Fred Klinder,
Yes, I'm here.
and Dominique Edwards and Stephen Hale are also here.
I'd also like to introduce our new associate planner, Lucas, who just started over the last week, 2 weeks. This is your second week?
This is my second week, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
this is
yeah?
the second week.
Associate planner.
Lucas, what's your last name?
Nice.
Lopez. Lopez.
And then our other admin will be joining us shortly. So, Isabel. Okay, so brief. So next on our agenda item is our workshop overview. So everyone, thank you so much for being able to join us today. So in regard to this workshop, Attorney Hale has drafted and updated our rules and procedures for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So this workshop is to serve to obtain input and feedback. Everyone should have gotten the meeting materials or the meeting packet last week with the draft rules and as well as some additional input and feedback from your fellow board members to review. So this workshop serves to not only go over the draft, but also have a discussion to obtain further input and feedback over these new and updated, or not so much as new, but at least updated rules and procedures of how the board operates and whatnot. And so as we don't have everyone here, this really is our initial or kind of preliminary first blush of the updated rules and procedures. I anticipate we'll probably have a few more drafts or iterations that come out that will officially be voted on, officially be voted on in our regular business. So I'll just let you know, we don't have any petitions for December, so I'm hoping to utilize that time with the board to take another look over the draft that comes that's produced from this workshop to be reviewed during that time or ahead of that time and say yay or nay in regards to these are how we want to move the board forward, as well as our 2026 meeting dates, those things to be approved on in our, approved of and looked at, which are also included in this meeting packet for 2026. Any questions or anything so far?
Before we go any further, since we didn't have a November meeting and December meeting, we're going to have a January meeting, which we don't have the schedule for next year yet. Can we agree that it's going to be on January 13th, which is the second Tuesday of the month?
Yes, sir. So we at least have that here. We at least have the first meeting of the year for 2026. That January 13th meeting is scheduled. So and then we also have and so our regularly scheduled Tuesday meetings. And so at least that one. So that's why I was saying that our December meeting hopefully will serve for the meeting where we look over everything, including the 2026
schedule for the next year.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, sir. So
we could have a December meeting and come in for 5 minutes.
Right. I mean that might be what that meeting ends up being. So I just wanted to iterate that and put that out there. I especially put that out there for the public as well. So yes, any questions or anything?
Do the meeting dates have to be approved? I guess they do have to be approved by the board. So it's got to be in an official meeting. The dates, times, and locations.
It has to be approved by the board. They don't have to be but can be set at the first meeting.
Right.
They can be changed.
Later on, they can be
Later on.
changed by approval of the board.
Right.
Yeah, and this was the problem last year and the year before, is we got to the first meeting and there were no dates set. And I think last year it took like 3 meetings to get the dates right.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's why I was hoping to be
Because of
proactive.
holidays,
Yeah,
Veterans
that's
Day,
why I
and all
want
that
to be
other
proactive
stuff.
now
Yeah.
for November, December, and January. So if that happens again, we'll have a little bit of a buffer going into 2026.
Yeah,
So
try to have it done at least
at
January.
least, exactly. So,
First of the year.
any further questions or anything? Before moving on?
I have a question. Did everybody receive my 16-page proposal for rules?
I did?
Yes. Okay.
I would like to make a comment on that. Before we even forget, you all received a copy of what I was first envisioning. I've been trying to get this done now since the 2nd or 3rd month I've been on the board. And I think they should be short, concise, and whether or not we really need to repeat existing code and stuff that the board's gonna follow. I'm not sure we need to do that. But other than that, okay, we'll worry about that later.
Not sure what you mean.
Well, a lot of this actually just recites either IC 3674 900 series or chapter 28 of appendix 3. I mean, it's just reciting code, and it's not rules that we can actually decide on. It's rules that we have to follow that are set by the legislature or the city.
That's true, however.
It's a good briefing on what the board is, yeah.
And it serves as a great outline for board members to
Right.
understand what the rules are. I venture they don't all know. So I think that's certainly why I incorporated it.
Well, I definitely think we need an outline of what the board does, not just for board members, but the general public. So they don't have to go into state code and all that, yeah.
Right.
I'm just not sure it belongs in rules and procedures we're gonna adopt, that's all. You know, I think every department should have that. Every department should have an abstract, basically, of what their department does and how they do it.
Well, I think this is an appropriate, rather than have 2 separate documents, I think this is an appropriate document to use. I would hope that we would, rather than splitting it in 2 and having 2 different documents. I would also comment that you're right, that the other boards that we're aware of, namely the Plan Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission, both need something like this.
Yes.
And it's my instructions from Wendy that that's what we're going to do.
Mhm.
And so once these are in final form, it's the intention that we would revise them because the baseline, the code requirements and so on are different. We would revise them and make them appropriate for both the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. So sometime in the future, there'll be another 2 documents like this.
Yeah. And
Excuse me, is
You're
your,
exactly right, that's,
what section of this that we got, are you having a problem with?
oh, it's just, if you're familiar with 3674 900 series of the state code, that's basically what a lot of this says. That actually defines who the members are, how they're appointed, what their terms are, what their powers are, and all that other stuff, which is
Yeah.
also in here. You know, and part of that is if that changes, or city code changes, we actually have to then change that part of this code too. So having the rules that we can actually approve in a separate document
Yeah, I understand. These
necessarily
are,
won't change if the city or state change the laws.
yeah, I understand. Most of this is what, pretty much determined by the state. They tell us how we should run our meetings, right?
Mhm.
And so this is, more or less an overview of what the state says that we should do.
Right.
And you got problem with what concerning that?
Well, I think what we're adopting specifically for Michigan City
This,
should just be separate from that. That's all. Now the city actually took the state code and put it in city code. They basically copied state code and put it in city code in chapter 28.
yeah.
So instead of just citing it, where in other places in city code, they actually just cite state code and say we adopt that.
Well, I don't know. If the state says we gotta do it, I suppose we should
Yeah.
do it.
And it's just, when you're referencing something with this, you've now got to go to 3 documents to see what actually applies to you, as opposed to 1. If you just follow the state, adopt the state, and then add what you want, then the state document is actually dictating everything except what you're allowed to change. As opposed to, okay, let's see what the state says, let's see what the city says, let's see what Michigan City says.
Yeah. How does that affect how we run our meetings?
It doesn't affect how we run the meetings, but I think it makes it easier for people to see what the code actually says. If you've got code that the state published, code that the city's published, and the code that we're adopting, and they're all similar, but if there are little changes, the state code is always going to take precedence first. But then you've actually got to go through all 3 documents to find it. That's all.
Okay. I don't know who's gonna go through those, other than you.
I guess my
You know, I live and die by what he says is the
Yeah.
rules, and I understand that as being the gospel,
My comment is just this. I put all this in one place. So now you read this and you know pretty much what you gotta do, what the state rules are regarding what you have to do, and what our ordinance rules are. Brian's right. I mean, it is incorporating all 3 provisions. That is, real rules for how long people can speak, or what your notices have to be, and when you have to file your petition. Those relate to rules for conducting our affairs. This includes an overview of what the state says and what our ordinance says, and it's there as a convenience, and it seems to me it would be helpful if there's one document that you can look at this and you don't have to carry around a big.
Yeah, I hear you.
And again, I don't disagree with what this is as far as laying out what the board does and how they do it and all that stuff. It's just that this is basically city and state code, and then we're going to adopt our own rules, which are not in those 2 documents. That's all.
I think I hear what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. And you find that cumbersome, that you have to be revised to fall, all of them,
Well,
in one way or another somewhere along the way.
which I don't think either one's changed in years,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
and I don't see it changing.
Yeah.
And again, if you've got a visitor or somebody else that's familiar with it and they come in, they don't necessarily need all this. They just need the part specific to Michigan City. And again, I just want to get that out there first, but we can continue with everything else now.
Okay, next on our agenda item, I'm hoping everybody has an agenda and whatnot. We'll be looking at the rules and procedures draft overview that was produced by Attorney Hale, so which should be included in your packets. So I'm hoping everybody has at least had time or first blush at this. There are some extra drafts if the public would like to review this as well. but we'll go ahead and go through each page.
Is that the 16-page document that
Yes.
we have here? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So I believe what was also on the table were some additional comments that was provided by Mr. Gross that we'll also look into after we've gone through at least the initial draft review. Attorney Hale, would you like to lead that, or would you?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I guess I would start by saying that there's a proposed difference that is substantively important to the board. And that is, currently, we require the petitioners to file a petition 30 or 20 or 15 days, and we need to square that out, before the hearing date. Now, that works okay, but we have had, I would say, at least a dozen a year where it doesn't work okay. And the reason it doesn't work okay is because the petition isn't ready to be heard. You know how many we continue and kick over. And probably there should be more that we continue or kick over because we're not really ready and we don't have the petitioner properly locked into what he's requesting. So the proposal that I put in this draft that I think you need to consider, and I think it's important, and I hope you give it a good thought too, is that the petitioner has to file his petition. Before he does that, Wendy is hoping that we'll have uniform identification document. So they would come in, they would fill out an identification document, who they are, what their project is, what they're asking for, and how we can contact them, which we don't always have,
Is that the intake form?
the intake form.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. And at that time, they pay the fee. We need to generate some fees and be consistent with it. Then they can file the application. I presume that a lot of people will do it at the same time, so we aren't really creating added work. But they file the application. But here's the change. The enforcement officer, that's Dominique, reviews the application and determines if it's in final form and if we have all the information we need. We have often asked for traffic studies. We've asked for changes to surveys. We've asked for a lot of additional information. And that's what this is supposed to push forward. That is, the enforcement officer, the head of the BZA, that's Dominique, would look at that and determine if it is ready to go. And if it's ready to go, then she schedules it for the next meeting. And there's a requirement in there that it should be within 30 days. So at that, this is a change in what we've done. And you have to think about whether that's a more efficient way to go about things. I believe it is. I believe it solves a lot of the glitches that we've had in the past. And I would think we should give it serious consideration. So I wanted you to note that at the very beginning. That's a big change that we want to think about.
So on the intake form, if somebody fills it out once, they don't have to fill it out again, it's actually on file?
Right, I presume that they're going to put it, in the computer, and so it'll be electronically available, and everything then will be referenced
Okay.
to this person. I also assume, I'm not involved in that form or that process, but I also assume that they'll have some sort of numeric designation, so you can punch a number and bring it up quickly.
But a lot of petitions are actually filed by attorneys or people that have done it before.
Yep,
And once they're in there, they can just file their petitions, they know what they're doing,
yep.
and there probably won't be any glitches. Okay.
So
they don't
and
have to
not
file
always.
it every time.
Right, and not always. So,
Okay.
I've been getting a lot more strict in the petitions that we receive because we do have folks that will push through a petition and it's not fully complete, information might not be accurate, so then they think that they can just get the petition the day before it's due, push it through, you know, to meet the deadline, and then I start to review it, and I use that entire month to fully review it. We had some headaches when I first started managing the board, and I said, no, we're not doing this again, right? It's very, it's not cost prohibitive to the department, for one. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of resources going back and forth with petitioners, making sure that they've got everything, right? And so when petitioners come to us wanting to get a variance or whatnot, I say, hey, you really need to take your time with getting your petition complete, because you have a lot of steps. If you miss a step, it's not going in front of the board, period. I don't care what it is. If your name is wrong, it's not going in front of the board. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how simple or complex it is. It's not going in front of you until it is fully complete and ready for it to, you know, to actually be seen, because you guys have to have as much information as possible and accurate in front of you to be able to make a appropriate, you know, decision based on the information that's provided in front of you. So if you don't have, so as Attorney Hale has stated, you know, you might have a petitioner where I say, you know, this doesn't have enough information, we need more information, you know, so I might say, hey, can you give me a traffic study on this site? Can you show me other impacts, or that might, you know, or provide me with as much information as possible, because there is, you know, certain areas of the code where they have to answer, you know, different questions. You know, does this have an adverse impact on the public? How does this impact surrounding areas, and things like that? So, yeah, so there's quite a bit that goes into that preliminary piece. We also have cross-departmentally, our site plan and development review. So when a project, depending on its scale, goes in front of all of our departments and we provide them with input and feedback at that time, some petitioners think they'll come, actually it's interesting how we have it scheduled. We have that site plan development review that happens actually right before the board. Some folks will give us a preliminary first blush on their project and think they're ready immediately to go through BZA, and they're not. So we've had some petitioners that have, you know, kind of hit their head against the wall, misstepping, right? Not getting appropriate input and feedback on their project on a preliminary basis, and thinking, oh, well, I can just go through the board. Nope. I say, give us some time. The petition is really quite extensive. So if you're thinking like, oh, they could just fill something out and tell me what their project is. No. So it's much more extensive. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. We try to help them as much as possible so that they can be successful ahead of going in front of the board. So just to give a little bit more context and information on that.
Well, the way I always kind of understood it from conversations that we have is that, because that they have to have 30 days, you have to have it to you 30 days beforehand, and you have to had approved it before it goes on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Is that the way it goes, or is that the way you want it to go? Because we have had both, I guess. Yeah.
I'm suggesting that in the proposed words that I use, that it would be not that it's required that you have at least 30 days before when you file. Currently the rules say, then you've got to have the meeting within 30 days of the filing. What I'm saying is, you have to have it as soon, at the next meeting, after she approves it.
Yeah.
That is really different, or at least it's not established to my satisfaction in our current rules.
Now, some other things you had in there, which is good, is they could submit it, can be approved, but the petitioner can actually request it not be at the next meeting, but at a following meeting.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the next meeting if the petitioner doesn't want it. So there is flexibility there.
Yeah, good point. But it is that in there. Well, I'll take you through this real quick, hopefully. Brian's correct. A lot of this is just a regurgitation of what's in the statute or the ordinance. So section 1.1 just talks about how we're established pursuant to state statute. 1.2 just talks about the members. You know that we have 5 members. You know how they're, now we're into that recycle, that every other year or every year somebody new gets recycled off or on. Section 1.3 just talks about vacancies and removals. Section 2.1 talks about officers. 2.2 talks about the chairperson. 2.3, the vice chairperson. 2.4, the secretariat notes that the secretary doesn't have to be a member. Then it talks about officer voting. And 2.5, public records, stating what is the law, that our rules, our meetings, and so forth are all public records and must be available to the public. Section 2.7 has something that's new. It says that BZA members may, by an affirmative vote, and the chairperson acting alone may appoint a committee. So it's the, if you want to just put a mark there, it's the chairperson acting alone could create a committee.
Okay, now,
Is that the addition, the chairperson
Yeah.
acting alone?
Yeah, it's in section 2.7 on page 2.
well, the whole thing with the committee is new, isn't it?
We've always had committees, we've never used it.
Okay, I've never seen committee mentioned in any of the code.
We've never used it.
But yeah, I don't know why the BZA would use it, simply because everything's laid out for them, pretty much.
That's particularly true with BZA, I suppose.
Yeah,
The plan commission has had.
that's different, yeah.
Section 2.8 talks about vacancies of officers. Section 3.1 states what is also true, that all regular and special meetings and workshops and other hearings are open meetings. The only exception is executive sessions are not open to the public. That's law. This just advises you of that. Regular meetings, you might look at section 3.2. It talks about when we set the schedule for the following year. I suggested, or I put language in that says that November or December, or at the first meeting of the following year, we establish our schedule. That is our dates of meetings for the following year. Section 3.3 says we can have special meetings. We've done that, but rarely. We can. There's specific authority for us to have a special meeting. And when we do, it's usually at the request of the petitioner, who's asking us to give him an earlier opportunity to get approval or a vote. There's a discussion of workshop meetings in 3.4, executive session meetings in 3.5. It notes what's required for a quorum. We have to have 3 members, as you know. And then what requires action. Action by the BZA requires an affirmative vote of at least 3 members. That should and does in here, it states that there has to be an affirmative vote that is 3 of the 5 members. And it doesn't matter how many are present, you need 3 positive votes. To vote yes, you need 3 votes to vote no. So a vote on a motion to approve that only gets 2 votes doesn't mean it's denied.
If you don't have full membership there, 'cause
Correct.
typically nobody can abstain.
Well, if you didn't,
Should be a
technically
quorum.
speaking, if we had a vote in favor and it only received 2 votes, you would have to have a vote to deny, and that would require 3 votes. Now, there could be a member not there, but there also could be a member who, for one reason or another, can't vote or doesn't choose to vote because of conflicts or that sort of thing. So, something for us to remember. It's not happened very often, but it has happened.
And I'll point out in that case, a motion can be made to continue that petition until the next meeting. If you
Which
can't
is-
get
which is
an affirmative
really-
or nay vote.
When we don't have a full complement,
Right.
if there's a deadlock, if you will, that's, as a practical matter, what should happen, and we have the power to do that. That is, have a vote to continue the matter to the next meeting under the assumption that there'll be a full complement. That is, all 5 people will be present.
Now, what would be, if you don't continue the matter, what happens to it? If you can't get,
There's no action, so I guess
does it automatically get continued? Does it die?
what should happen would be that there'd be a motion by somebody to continue the matter.
Okay.
We've never had a table the matter sort of forever and bury it. I think we would call it, and if the petitioner didn't show up even, we'd just deny it.
Mhm.
There's nobody there.
Right.
So it should be continued probably no matter what. 3.8, you might, on page 4, you might just mark that. It talks about conduct. It basically says that the chairperson or whoever is the presiding officer, that could be the vice chair, and if they were both gone, we still could have 3 people there. We could appoint someone to chair the meeting or conduct the meeting. We want to use Robert's Rules of Order. Brian's got a specific reference, we'll put that in there.
I guess there are multiple versions of Robert's Rules of Orders published by different companies.
Oh, okay. Well, you got one that you want to throw in there?
Yeah, the one I've got there,
Just let me know what the name is, what is inserted. Yeah.
this is one updated by the general's grandson, I believe, or great-grandson.
From Webster? Or who? Robert? Anyway, I'm
Roberts, yeah.
being flip. Just let me
But that's
see
the one,
that.
I think I have that cited in my information.
Yeah.
Henry Roberts.
Robert's Rules.
Henry Robert.
Order newly revised 2020 edition.
Yeah, okay. Well, that should be in there. But I also put, and you might want to put a tick here for you to look at, that the chairperson or whoever is running the meeting is the interpreter of what the rules are.
Parliamentarian.
Yeah.
Fine.
So if there's a dispute about what it says or what it means, he would decide.
But the members of the board can appeal that,
No.
can they not?
They can,
Okay,
So it's not
for a vote. by the board.
right.
shall not subject to appeal.
Then there's, we use the agenda at meetings, and that's good. I think it's worked well. We haven't always done this, so it was implemented a while ago, but it works well, I think. So section 3.9 on page 4 talks about that. These electronic meeting rules, I just basically copied out of what we've been told. There's a reference to a policy establishing a procedure for a member of the Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals. We were given that a few years ago about what's required.
Before we go on 4, I've got some questions on 3.3, 3.4, 3.5.
Sure.
In city code, it says chairman or 2 members may call a special meeting. Okay, and I see you've got 3 there. You've got that on workshop and also on executive session. Is there a reason to go to 3?
No,
Okay,
just arbitrary on my part, that's all.
okay. I think 2 would be good for the special meetings. Workshop, I know city council, anyone on the city council can call a workshop. Now, nobody has to show up. You know, and again, a workshop is informal, it's not required, although it does have to be advertised. I would like to see that anybody can call a workshop at a normal meeting, as long as it's scheduled then. And again, there'd probably be discussion on what the workshop is and why it's being called.
I'm indifferent about workshop. I think that you're right, though, about instead of 3, we should make it 2. And unless somebody objects.
I'm looking for the number 2, which,
It's in
what
3.3.
section is it, huh?
It's in section 3.3.
3.3.
First line all the way on the right, or by any 3 members of the BZA.
Who can call a special meeting? And we have on occasion done this, but it would be somewhat rare or unusual.
Yeah, they
But especially,
never.
Brian's point about special meetings is that, I mean, a special meeting is typically a petition, deciding on something like that, so, or a hearing of some sort. And I think he's correct, that the chairperson or 2 members of the commission should be able to call one.
Or the
Bring
enforcement
it
officer
up.
can only get in touch with 2.
Yes, actually.
So probably the
actually,
language should be amended since I was the one who organized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem
I
with
mean, if
it.
you
Doesn't-
get in
I'm
touch with
indifferent
me,
about what we
I don't
do
carry
with
my phone
workshop
out, so.
Oh,
Yeah. Same with workshops, should be 2.
Well, Brian is saying any member, any one member.
How often do we have workshops? And again, typically workshops are announced at a meeting, and there's usually some discussion there. You know, you're at the meeting, you set a date then. You know, it could be 2 or 3. You know, like today, we're having a workshop and there's only 3 members here.
Yeah,
So it's just, you know, again, I just know that the Common Council only requires 1 member. 1 member can actually call a workshop. That's all. Some stuff I have is just to be consistent with what the Common Council does.
I'd suggest you have a minimum of 2 people, so one
Oh, that's
person
fine.
isn't headstrong about it, that you have
Yeah.
at least some bare agreement.
I
Well,
think
again,
this is my first.
one person can call the workshop, the other 4 don't have to
14
show
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is my first
We kind
workshop.
of smooth through everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll make it 2 in the next
Okay.
draft you look at, you can always change it.
Okay.
Executive sessions is also 3. I
Have
don't
you
know
ever
if we
had
have
one? Have you ever had an executive session?
No, we never had a special meeting.
The only
This is
reason
our
I
first
think of
workshop.
that is
No.
if you're going for an
No.
enforcement action with the county prosecutor. I don't know why else you would have an executive session.
There could be personnel matters. It would be, I'm trying to think of.
Wouldn't that be the appointing person, though?
Wow.
I don't know. If somebody, I don't know, I would, it's certainly possible that.
Okay.
I would keep it, but I don't know that there's, I would think in an executive session, you want more consensus to have the meeting than less. Nobody cares.
What is the,
We don't do it anyway, right?
what would be the requirements for an executive session? Other than a special meeting? or
3 people
something?
comment. And you cannot discuss normal business that has to be in an open meeting.
It can't be anything that you would make a decision or determination on. So, we don't hear them very often.
Known as a useless session.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
We could rename it that.
Yeah, let's rename it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Um,
All right.
Because we go smooth. I mean, we really do go smooth.
You want to keep it that.
And we want to keep it that way. No ripples.
The county council does it for personnel meetings, I know, and I think if they're discussing, if a company wants confidentiality on a proposal or something, they probably go in executive session. I don't
I
know,
don't know what they do.
but
If
I don't see us doing anything like that.
we would.
So-
we would do that.
So are you guys saying that you're wanting to mix some of these different meeting tiers or workshop tiers if it doesn't apply directly to the board? Or
Well, I think some of it applies,
I just want to get it.
you know, big question is how many people are needed to call.
Okay.
You know, executive session, 3 probably makes sense. If 3 thinks it's a serious matter and needs to be, that's already a quorum. They can call it themselves, the other 2 don't even have to show up.
Is that all your comments about that?
Yeah, that's it.
3? Well, then we got into the electronic meeting rules, and I just leave it there for you to look at. And then Article 5 starts on page 5, it starts 5:1. It's starting to talk about how we proceed with the case. And I think you want to look at that and see, remember that several things. Remember what I've discussed about or pointed out to you about how I'm proposing we might process an application. With the information sheet and the fee as a step 1, it can be at the same time with an application, but the scheduling is up to enforcement officer determining that everything is ready to go. And it says that. And on page 6, if you look at, for instance, E, enforcement officer shall review the application and may request or require the petitioner to submit additional materials needed to allow us to make an informed decision. That happens a lot. You don't probably see that so much. Maybe you don't see it enough. But Skylar over the years has often required petitioners to submit additional information. I know now Dominique has continued that practice, and you have to know that's something we have to have. We have to have somebody looking at this carefully before it's ready to submit to you, because it can take a lot more time than we have for a meeting. And in the case of needing more information, it would be very inefficient to have that decision made at the meeting and tell the petitioner's got to come back after he submits it. It's better if we get it out there at the beginning.
And if I can make a comment on that, I mean, I'm big on having parking space off-street, as the city ordinances has. And I know there was one where we spent a lot of time, you know, the guy's gonna build a double driveway, but he's got a garage, he's gonna tear it down. And we spent a lot of time on that, where if that were handled, okay, what are you gonna do for your 5.5 parking space? I think you need 4.5 parking spaces. You know, show us on the map before it even gets to the board, because we did spend a lot of time on that, and he didn't have an answer. So
And that's what I referred to earlier in regards to making sure that these petitions are tight, properly vetted, have the most
Right.
information needed so that you have time, and also making sure that you have the meeting materials in a timely manner, at least I've been trying to make sure that it's at least 2 weeks before, sometimes it might be a week before, you know, so that you at least have time to review those materials, have, you know, coming prepared to the meetings, and can provide, you know,
Take a ride.
have an informed, right, if that's what you want to do too, and be able to make appropriately informed decisions. So
Yeah, I think we're probably all in agreement on that.
Oh, yeah, you know, I've a number of times have thought about all of what Tyler's had to gone through in order to get all the information to us. And I know it took them more than 30 days to do this, to get the questions out and get the answers in, you know, and get it done. And right now, our requirement is to do nothing more than to make sure that she has the rights to do those work that matter, right? Because it's blind to us, you know. So, yeah. So it's her call, and if she likes it, it's good.
But no, I think it's,
I think it's up to y'all, but okay.
Yeah.
They got power now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I would, if I thought there was any way that I would know more than you about that procedure, then I would say something, but of course I don't, you know?
You've never been shy.
No,
No, that's
Never
true.
been shy.
Well, I know.
and mostly right. And mostly right.
And
Yeah.
usually right.
Yes.
well,
agree with that.
yeah, she should have the petitioner thinking about the answers before he comes before the board.
Yeah,
Good point.
right.
And this is why I advise the petitioners not to rush through their applications. So, and to also seek legal counsel if necessary, you know, or, you know, real estate representative, whatever, whomever, whatever, you know, support mechanisms that they need so that they can actually put in a properly, you know, a full comprehensive petition before it hits you guys. It needs to pass kind of the sniff test through our department. So, and I don't make those decisions lightly. I always make sure that I link up with Attorney Hale and other department heads to say, hey, let's all look at this collaboratively together, right? Sometimes I'll bring in our city engineer if that's necessary as well. That's why it depends on the scale of the project as well, where we might need that additional input and feedback. So.
Can't y'all just show up at the meeting and Martin Hartman, police, city engineer, sanitation,
So-
you all, you know.
Skylar's working an awful lot with the redevelopment commission.
Is that what he's doing?
Yeah.
And plan commission.
Okay, because I've been in the building,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him anywhere, so I didn't know
Yeah.
what he was doing.
We need redevelopment.
Section 5.2 talks about the application, so it talks that what the form is, and it indicates that there can be an electronic application or a paper. As you know, we're in the middle of trying to get everything electronic, but I don't think we're there yet. So we want to have a provision that they can file it either way until we iron that out. The most important thing on page 6, I think, is at the bottom. I just put a note. I've got there that if a paper application is filed, that we want 12 copies. That's arbitrary.
Oh,
Actually, you know, if it's just 12 copies of the application, you can make them. But if they got plat drawings and stuff like that, that are this big, architectural drawings that you can't copy, and we're each getting one, you're getting one, police, fire, sanitation, you know, 12 copies is not unreal.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but yeah.
The next thing is a pet peeve of mine. It's section 5.2C at the bottom of page 6. People come in and they just assume that they have the right to speak for the owner.
Oh.
And
Oh.
we have to be very careful that when we make decisions that affect property, that it's something that the owner has authorized. And so I'm trying to say that they have to provide a power of attorney or some similar document that shows and demonstrates to our satisfaction that the owner is aware of this and has authorized it. Because you know that often it's not the owner, and the problem is acute when it's a corporation and some guy comes in here and says, well, I'm the manager. And sometimes when we're dealing with signs, we have a guy come in from the sign company
yes.
and he says, I'm authorized to do this. Well, we need something to tie that up. And that's
Because if
where-
you don't have that, you could throw the whole thing out, right? That's the legality that's
Well,
mandatory.
I just don't think that we want to, nor do we have the right to make a decision affecting property without the approval of the owner.
Yeah.
And we have some interesting cases actually where that applies more so recently, where we have, I'll say, potential petitioners that might be in the middle or at the preliminary stages of a real estate transaction. And so they will come in to us to like verify zoning or permitted uses and things like that. And, you know, I let them know, like, you might potentially have to have a variance for this parcel or this site because your conceptual vision or the vision that you want for this site is not permitted in our code. So we've been having to be kind of the tiebreaker or the heartbreaker, I guess you can say, in regards to what folks are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. Then when I say you have to go in front of the BZA for this, but you know, we don't really have codified or in the rules this particular documentation or whatever, what have you. So we still have that. It's a gray area that needs to be much more solid, much more hammered out, because then it also empowers our department to say yay or nay, right? No, sorry, you cannot file a petition because you are not the owner or you don't have the appropriate documentation. And perhaps that also needs to be put in our application form or packet, that they also need to have, if you are not the property owner, then you need that documentation attached to your petition that says you're allowed to move the way that you're moving, because say the whole real estate transaction falls apart, right? Okay, well, they've already gone through BZA or whatever, they've gotten a variance, so then that actually sets up the next property owner or potential property owner that might want to purchase this, that might set them up for failure. So trying to kind of nip some of those things in the butt ahead of time by being a lot more strict, a lot more thorough when it comes to this, because we've had a lot of, you know, Michigan City is exploding in a positive way, right, with growth. And with that growth also comes some challenges. And so these are some of those challenges that we're kind of encountering as a department.
Now, when it comes to zoning ordinance and location, buildings or improvements, does the city make that, or do you actually require a licensed surveyor to decide whether what they're doing is within the zoning requirements or not, like setbacks and all that?
So we, you know, we'll review the setbacks, the zoning code and everything with them in regards to the parcels. So we like to make sure that folks get a zoning verification letter from us that determines, you know, this is what your parcel is zoned, these are the permitted uses. We ask, or I request for them to, hey, you know, that's your opportunity to ask as many questions as possible on this parcel or on this site, so that you know what you're getting into or what you're trying to step into. So
I guess my question there is, somebody built a garage and the city gave them permits, but it didn't, they were on a corner and it didn't meet the side setbacks. Okay, and evidently they did not have a surveyor come out, survey the property, make sure because surveyors typically will tell you where your setbacks and everything are. Yeah. So I guess that's something, any location of anything, they should, in my opinion, have some sort of a licensed surveyor certify where they're putting it, that it's in a good position. Again, that's not part of ours, but
just kind of like FYI.
yeah, something else. You know, we don't want to rezone something and find out, oh, they built a thing and they didn't ask for a setback variance.
I just point out that were that to occur, that if someone builds something with a building permit, but it violated the setbacks, they're not in compliance and they could be required to tear it down.
Right.
Or to come before us for a variance.
And that should have been appropriately vetted by our departments before that happened, if they were provided with a permit. So
Well, and that's the thing, is your department really isn't licensed surveyors. And, you know, it's like legal stuff. I'm more comfortable with a licensed lawyer signing off on it. You know, and I would think that would just be a requirement on anything location, is that.
Yeah, the guy that did that on Gardena Ave.
That's what I'm
garage
thinking
to
of.
Flying, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Sure, you know, and they came to us and we looked at it and made a determination that it was, you know, we gave approval for the variance, you know.
okay. Well, I'll look into that and discuss that with whomever the enforcement officer was before me, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, yes, you weren't here,
Yeah,
but,
so-
you know, you're better off, you know, spend $1,000, get a surveyor to say, yes, it's right, as opposed to spend $100,000, put it up, and the neighbor complains and you gotta tear it down.
right.
Yeah, but sometimes it's petty, and $1,000 is not easy for a lot of people to have.
If you're doing an appeal or building something, $1,000 is nothing these
It
days.
is to people that are working in factories and
Oh,
have families and
it
all
is.
that, it is.
But if you're talking about putting a $100,000 addition on and
That's
possibly
different,
having
yeah.
to tear it down and lose all that money, I mean, it's basically just a guarantee, that's all. It's just, we've just had an incident of that.
I would make a requirement, it would maybe be best practices. But it's not hard to determine my setback's supposed to be 20 feet and I'm only 10 feet. You don't need a surveyor to tell you that. That garage is criminal, frankly.
But some
Because he
people-
needed a plat to pour the concrete and then he needed another plat to build the garage. And somehow that passed through the department before you were there. And
Right.
and it got built. Anybody driving down that street can see that this doesn't comply.
And again, you know, in my opinion, the only person that can actually judge what the setbacks are and whether you're within what the setbacks require is a professional. That's all.
I agree with Kathy. No, you read the zoning, it says it's 20 feet on a side lot. This one was not complicated. It's not
No,
like they're
it wasn't.
1906, Brian.
But people didn't read it, that's the thing.
that's
not a
their
surveyor. That's one of the
Oh,
things I.
it's that simple.
speak
And
out
it's not
about.
just the owner that didn't read
How
it,
did
it's
it get
actually
through
the city
planning
didn't read it.
department?
But that's not the city's responsibility. I guess that's the thing, it's, you know, it goes back, I don't know, I used to live in South Bend, they had Corby's Bar there, south of Notre Dame about a mile, and Corby's put a big addition on. And the owner, you know, they got permits and everything, owner of the next door property said, no, this doesn't follow zoning. Went to the city, city forced them to tear it off because they didn't have it zoned for the proper setback.
Going back to the garage, when he applied for a building permit, he would have had to supply a plat, even a hand-drawn one. The department should not have okayed it based on that doesn't meet. They're supposed to know the zoning. That is the city's job.
They aren't professionals on zoning, that's the whole thing.
They're professional on reading the zoning code and saying you need a 20-foot setback on a side lot.
Are you
That's not
professionals
rocket
on that?
science.
Well,
I mean,
Her department is.
Yeah.
That's what her department's there for.
You're supposed to be able to do it.
but that's why we're here, because we were able to save that guy's garage. And he
Right.
didn't have to tear it down. And it's no big, it's not according to code, but it's no big thing. It's a little close.
It was 3
But
feet.
it doesn't inhibit any, the neighbors didn't have any problem with it, was a big thing that, why I voted in favor
I
of
mean, you
it.
gotta prove, that one's passed, doesn't matter.
Anyways,
Yeah.
they're getting off
what I
subject,
think
I
we're
guess.
talking about
Yeah.
Yeah.
in future. So what I'm hearing
Don't
is,
ever let it happen again.
yes, sir. So that's what I'm hearing.
That's what my
basically,
wife
is that,
keeps saying, too.
You know, being very much more meticulous in the way in which
9 kids
we're doing
read.
reviews.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back to the agenda. We're past our scheduled break. I did schedule a break for everyone to kind of, you know, so it's already 2 o'clock, or almost 2 o'clock. Wait, no, it is 2 o'clock. So this is, we haven't gotten all the way through. So Attorney Hill, if you want to keep moving, but I do want to mention that we are cutting into our input and feedback session, but I think we've just kind of had open discussion here. So let's just keep moving forward. So,
Good idea.
all right, thank you.
Hey, your pleasure. Go for it. Well, we were talking, I'm on section 5.5 on page 7. That's staff review. I've mentioned that already, how we're going, what the proposal is for processing applications with staff review. The enforcement officer determining that it's ready to be decided upon or determined. And then the next section, Article 6, is notice. The first one, 6.1, just talks about notice for a meeting. We have a meeting, we have to give 4 days notice. We know that. And then we have to talk about notice for a particular petition, and that's 6.2. So we have Public hearings. Public hearings are when we're going to make a decision on a particular matter. Typically, a variance or development standards issue, we're familiar with those. We can have other kinds of things where we make a decision, and they all require the petitioner to provide some sort of notice. So, the first one, 6.2A1 on page 8, repeats our rule about a 300-foot buffer. I would just point out that if you recall, I know Fred, you were still here then, we had a requirement that you only had to notify adjoining property owners.
And across the street, I think.
Well, across railroads and, yeah, across streets and railroads.
Yeah.
And that is still fairly common throughout the area, but also some jurisdictions, some local towns and cities require more than what we do. They require a sign, for example. The ones that I've seen that work well, they provide the sign. That is, the BZA has a bunch of signs and they'll prepare the sign. Otherwise, you'll get a real mishmash of signage. But 300 feet has worked pretty well. When we first instituted this, there was concern that it was going to be too expensive. But now you can, through Beacon, get Beacon to give you the list and show you who's included within 300 feet, and that is a good product. And so we've been using it. And I haven't seen very many individuals who come before us who have an inordinate or a real large number of people that they have to give notice to. It's the bigger projects, and if it's a bigger project, they can afford the extra cost.
Now, I guess a couple of things on that. One, how did you come up with 300 feet? Just arbitrary, or?
No.
I'm just curious.
My memory is that it was in use somewhere else. And,
Okay.
And we determined that it would,
Adopted it.
yeah, it would work. We would try it out and see how it worked.
And then the second thing, and I thought about this, I don't think we need to do it at this meeting, but I think we should have a requirement that major projects should also require a sign. You know, maybe if somebody's doing 2 acres or more, or something like that, they should require signs on every street. And again, just something to think about. I don't think we need to throw it in right now.
I think we should make a note. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
We don't have requirements for signs. do
that's
we?
correct. We do not.
No.
Other communities do,
Huh?
but certainly not all of them. I would say a sign is probably less than a majority of other jurisdictions.
And I don't think we need it for every property, but let's say the St. Joe, the old hospital, I guess, if somebody's gonna do something like that and not get it rezoned, just go for a variance, I think there should be signs there to let everybody driving by through as opposed to just people within 300 feet.
Don't they have to post that though, what they're doing if they're gonna do something like that way, that
What do you
big
mean?
job? Doesn't it have to be posted in the paper or something?
Yeah.
Don't they
Yeah,
have to
in
make
the
notice? They have to make notice.
Yes, yes.
They
Right.
do have
Yeah.
to make notice.
How
Sure.
many people get the paper anymore?
That's not the problem of this committee. I mean, that's,
Well, I would say
Well,
this.
it is because of, you know, I wonder a lot of times who would know, you know, because you don't get anything in the paper. Who knows if Michigan City's playing tomorrow night even, you know?
Yeah.
The paper used to be our standby, and we don't have a standby anymore, you know?
And again, that's probably another meeting.
But Brian's point addresses my major concern or objection to requiring a sign. And that is that it would be, one, cumbersome to implement, but too expensive for the little guy. And so if we put a size or some other limitation that we can think of, and it's only the big guys that have to do it, then we don't have to worry that it's expensive or that it's cumbersome. We're just gonna say, you gotta do it. And if we don't like your sign, we'll make you do a new one.
So what I'm hearing is that we need project tiers, maybe something along the lines of what we would consider something major, minor, admin, or whatever you want to call the project tiers and regarding the signage requirements or any other requirements, so that we're not hindering those who might be low to moderate income residents that are just that want a new garage, they want or need a variance or whatever, accessory structure or something that doesn't meet the code generally. So, okay.
It's more
So
for
maybe we should
somebody
have a-
that is probably going to do a use variation or something like that, where they're going to take a general business and turn it into maybe a warehouse with semis or something.
Okay.
So then we go back to
Something
section
like that.
3.3 and we can have a special meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
We got to get through this first, though. But keep it in the back of your brain.
So six.
I've made a note, sir. But thank you.
6.2A2 just talks about newspaper publication, we're familiar with that, required to do twice in this. And then 3, something, we did actually have this rule, and it's honored by all the lawyers that appeared before us and other sophisticated sorts, but not always honored by the individual applicants or petitioners, but to file all their notice documentation the day before the meeting. And that's purely selfishness on my part, because I'd like to see it ahead of time and have time to, as opposed to seeing it at the meeting. And you all know, you've seen me look at those
Yeah, and I'll agree.
at the meeting, and it's really hard to listen and concentrate and still try and go through that stuff.
I was gonna volunteer to help you read green cards sometime.
I've learned how to do it the day before. I can usually operate pretty well. Most of the lawyers anyway do a really good job. Notice contents, then procedure. Again, you want to just look at the general procedure. Maybe this is a duplicate. You might want to look at that, but it's an attempt to set out in one place here the whole general procedure in 7.1. I would point out on page 10, there's in E at the top of page 10, there's a discussion about how soon the enforcement officer would schedule a hearing. The appearance is required of the petitioner. You might want to think about that. So that's G, put a tick there, take a look at it.
Now, when you say appearance, does that also mean electronically via Zoom?
Well, that's...
Because we have allowed that.
We do.
And do we
That's
need to
something that we should
specifically put it in
discuss.
there? Or,
Well, that's a good point. I think we should, I think we should just talk about that.
I also have a question in regards to this. So, say we have someone or a future developer that needs a variance for their project, and instead of them coming to in person, they might assign somebody on the local level, like an attorney or whatever, what have you. Does this apply in that section? Are you still okay with that? I just kind of wanted to touch base on that.
Well, in the language under G, it says, parentheses, they have to appear or they're formally appointed designee. So if they had that power of attorney or just a letter of introduction, that John Smith has the power to act for me in all regards to the petition to to seek a development standards variance.
Okay.
I want you to just take I and cross it out. That doesn't make any sense where it's at. It's just my mistake.
Cross it out, or does it need to be in another section?
I'm gonna have to rework that to give you a better idea. Here's the issue.
well, Dominique wants more work anyway, so.
So, very
We have a different dog. We've never really addressed it or had to address it, and that's an administrative appeal. And I can see us having these. So that would, an example of an administrative appeal would be that somebody challenges a decision made by Dominique. And we have the right, under statute and ordinance, to determine that. And the rules are a little bit different. And the notice rules should be a little bit different because there aren't affected neighbors.
Right.
You know? But there's some language that I put in here that each side, if you will, gets a right to designate who should be called or what information should be reviewed. But it's handled differently, and so when we talk about administrative appeals, I need to do a better job of suggesting language to deal with it. And that's in the middle of this page 10.
And we can't just do that at Joe's Tavern on a Friday night?
We can. You know, our process in what is L is the bottom of page 10, and what else is it? It's in here somewhere else.
As far as
We may want to have more language than what's there, but anyway, my point is this. When I first started appearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals, before I was an attorney for you all, they didn't have any real written findings, or they wouldn't even discuss them. And I've made it a point to make sure we have written findings. It's required. But how we go about it is that we come back and you make a motion. I always say include the findings that are included in the report. That's legitimate. Every once in a while, people have had their own findings, and that's also legitimate and encouraged. But then there's not enough time to really put it into a formal findings. But we've adopted those findings. It's clear, they're at the meeting, we've all seen it, you know what's done. I think it satisfies any sort of notice requirements, but it's nice to have it in writing. It's a formal thing. So you come back the next month and approve that document. And I think that works okay, but you may want to put a tick there if you think there's a better way of doing it. I'm trying to avoid work and confusion. When I was appearing before other jurisdictions, there were some places where they would take a brief recess. They'd go in a back room with the lawyer and they'd scream and shout and come back with a piece of paper that they all wrote on that says, these are our findings. That's not a good way to conduct business.
But we have AI now that will do it for you in no time.
Yeah.
So anyway, put a nick there. That's something to think about.
Now,
Go ahead.
why the city recorded, it used to be that the petitioner had to record the finding.
Yeah, what I have, the petitioner doesn't. I have the petitioner shall pay the recording fee for that.
Okay. And, yeah, and I think in the other ordinance, cities, it says the petitioner will file the findings with the county before the city will issue permits. Which, it makes more sense to me that the city do it simply because they're more familiar with having things recorded.
Well, that's what this is saying. The planning department shall have the petition, the minutes of the meeting, the decision of findings of fact recorded, and the petitioner shall pay the recording fee before permits will be issued. So
Okay.
it says what you propose. I think that's the best way to do it.
And I guess we also issue permits, the next day after the meeting, if we approve something, the city currently issues permits even though it isn't recorded or the findings haven't been approved at the next meeting, from what I understand.
I would only comment that I know that there are several situations that I can recall where permits were not issued until something was recorded.
And that's what the
That's what
code
should
currently
happen.
says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it happens in every circumstance, I can't tell you, but it's the building department that issues the permits, you know?
Right.
So there's not necessarily a double check there. Then also on page 11, under section 7.1, I know, Brian, you have concerns about this, about the time limit for a speaker's public comment. And there's 2 times when people can speak, as we know. There's a time to speak for the public comment on a particular petition, and there's time after petitions are all done. There's a whole section, an agenda item for public comment. And so we have not used a time limit in my memory ever. I cannot remember a time that it was, in my mind, just personally, needed. We came close the other day when somebody was reading something and you don't want somebody to read the Sunday newspaper. However, that worked out just fine, and it wasn't overly long, and I think it's wise for us to be generous in allowing public comment if it relates to our business. If you're commenting about tariffs in the country, that's obviously not something we're concerned with. But but put a nick there, think about, do you want to have a time limitation, or what I have, the presiding officer of any meeting may set a time limit for a speaker's public comment, both as part of a remonstrance during a public hearing and as part of general public comment at the end of a public hearing. So I'm suggesting that says that the presiding officer, the chair or vice chair or whoever's running the meeting, can say, I'm going to limit comment, especially if it's like 10 o'clock and we all want to go home. Or if somebody is going on and on, I think it's incumbent upon the presiding officer to say, we've heard your comment about this, we understand it. If you have something new, please go to it. If not, I'm just going to give you a couple minutes, let's say 120 seconds to summarize your position, or something of that nature.
Then I addressed that in my handout.
I think that's good. I think it's a good idea. That's a good way to handle it. I think you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there's some deadline information in section 7.2. You want to take a look at that. I think, in looking at it, 7.3 on page 12, that the petitioner, their attorney must appear. That has to be revised to be consistent with other language earlier that we talked about, where we talk about our designated representative, properly designated representative. So that needs work.
Instead of agent, you're saying,
Well,
or your agent, you want it designated.
yeah, I want to use the same language that
Yeah,
appeared
yeah.
earlier. And then a continuance. So this is something that you may want to think about. We've often gotten a request from a petitioner for a continuance before meetings. In this case, it says if it's 24 hours or more before the schedule, the chairperson or the enforcement officer may grant a request. What happens in practice is that the enforcement officer says, okay, and just brings it in front of you. And this also says, the proposal that I've got is, if it's made within 45 hours, the BZA may grant the continuance. This is tricky, so we may want to think about this a little bit harder. As you know, sometimes people will come at the meeting and they'll start talking and then they'll want a continuance for one reason or another. And
That's happened quite often,
yeah.
you know.
So we have to decide how we're going to handle that and what it's going to mean. And who decides. It's awkward, let's say, better word is inefficient. If somebody calls up or sends an email, which is what they usually do, and I know that I've suggested to Skylar, and Skylar has always said, just email us a request for continuance and we'll accept that. And he's related that to you all as members of the board, and we've then moved to accept the continuance. It seems to me that you would like to continue that process, but how do we put the words down that says that? So do you want to have a time limit? That is, they have to ask more than 24 hours ahead of time to have the enforcement officer just make the decision? And should you then affirm that? Well, what happens if you say, no, we're not going to give it to them? Then they're not here. I mean, that's happened.
There is actually code in there that says a remonstrator may ask for a continuance for good cause.
Right.
And I think we need the same on a petitioner. A petitioner may ask for a continuance for good cause. Good cause, his wife was in a car accident, he snowed in, something like that. Oh, I forgot the date of the meeting. We published that. That is not a good cause. So I think we need to put that in there.
I would be really careful about that because my experience is that sometimes they don't really have a good cause, and sometimes they want to add to their presentation or add to their materials, or sometimes they can't get an expert there, like the sign guy or something like that. And sometimes they know that there's only going to be 3 people, or when they show up, this document, this proposal says if they show up and there's not our rules that we cite every day or every meeting. If everybody isn't there, if you don't have 5 people, you can ask for and get a continuance. So we need to think about this whole area of continuance. We want to serve the public, and we don't want to make, it seems to me, personal opinion, that we don't want to make rules that are going to hurt people, and that make it easy for them to go through our process. That's all. I agree, we don't want to be having meetings scheduled and there's only one on the schedule, and then they come and the dog ate my homework. That's my excuse for wanting to continue this thing. If they're there in person, I think that it works well that you all would decide. What concerns me is when they call up and say, we want a continuance, and Skylar has in the past said, okay, and then if you decided that you disagree with that, what do we do? I mean, it's an awkward situation.
Well, I think the code already says that we do not have to grant continuance.
Exactly.
Right. So that's up to the board, and I think, again, things should be, do they really have a good reason for it? Their expert won't be there. I can understand that, or they have other documentation that they weren't able to get, or they just thought of, that might be, depending on what it is.
And I have a question in regards to the communications workflow for that. So upon a petitioner requesting a continuance, so for example, there was an instance or a couple instances where that petitioner may have reached out to me either the morning of or the day before a scheduled hearing asking for a continuance. So I've had to come to the meeting the night before or the night of to get it approved by the board. Do we want to restructure the language in regards to how that is? I also think that it puts a little bit of unfairness on the public that show up expecting to hear said petition, and then that petition is not. So I would at least so I think what I'm saying is that I would at least like a little bit more time, right? So that not only is the board aware that, hey, this petitioner requested a continuance, but also either cancel that hearing so that the public doesn't come out expected to hear a petition that's not going to be heard. So,
Well,
Are you saying that you would or would not want the authority to decide to continue or not to continue sometime in advance of the hearing?
I would like the authority, but I also would like the input and feedback from the board as well on how to move in regards to communications wise. So if it's electronic and I get it the morning of, do I immediately just cancel the hearing, say, okay, well, I'll go ahead and grant their continuance if it's a good faith or good reasoning is what you said, or whatever, what have you.
As long as you notify everybody else that's going to show up at the meeting, that has read the newspaper and had notice and everything.
So, and that's
do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point. And so I think you can require the petitioner to be present if he wants a continuance ahead of time.
Yeah.
And when he comes, then you can say you've got to ask. And that satisfies another issue, because I've taken the position that if a petitioner is present and we're not going to hear the petition that night, but he's given notice to everyone, if we notify everyone during the meeting that this is going to be continued to a date certain, that is our next meeting, but that's good notice and they don't have to do it a second time. I think that's a good policy and we should keep it. But that helps make that call about notice again. If they show up and they say, I want to continue it, so we say yes, and then we remind the public that it's going to be heard, or we make part of the motion that it be reheard at the next meeting.
And
However,
something I think the board has to weigh in situations like that is the petitioner wants a continuance and there are no remonstrators in the audience. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. If you've got 15 remonstrators in there and all of a sudden the petitioner says he wants a continuance, these 15 people came here that night for it, and I would have more of a problem with that, because why should they have to reschedule their dates again because, you know, this guy wants continuance for everything? But that's something the board has to look at every situation.
That's happened to me twice already, as a member of the public, who's probably one of the most engaged members of the public. I've come twice on the same matter that I very much want to speak out against.
Yes.
Now what? When is it actually going to happen? How many times am I supposed to show up?
Well,
Because our
that's-
communication is poor with our messed up municipal calendar, which is out of date and might not even list a meeting. So, and the one I want to speak about is, I think it's still pending. I don't know.
Yes.
But I don't want to miss that meeting because I very strongly want to speak about it. But I've already been here twice to speak about something.
Yes.
So this is an important matter.
And I think the board just needs to weigh that on each situation. Actually look at, again, does he have a good reason? Is he not there? You've got 15 remonstrators, but again, he's coming from Naperville and got in an accident. Okay, some things are good reasons, other things are not. And he's not the only public that we serve. we also serve everybody out there in the audience.
Well, this certainly needs fleshing out, more discussion and consideration. So
Yeah.
let's just all remember that we got to worry about that. And then there's withdrawal, section 7.5, page 12. And if prior to the, let's say, presentation of this case, a petitioner withdraws, he can refile within or after 3 months. If he started the presentation of his case, then he's got to wait 12 months. And I think that's what we should stick with. But that's what 7.5.
And then they have to repay the fees of whatever.
Everything starts over again.
Okay, it's fresh again.
If he started presenting evidence already and withdrawals, it's just like the motion was denied. And after it's denied, you have to wait a year before you can present it again.
It's similar, yeah.
Yeah, same time frame.
But remember, withdrawal means that it's gone. So petition B-102, he withdraws, let's just say a week before. He's withdrawn that petition. Now his next petition's got to be B-118. It's a new petition. And so he's got to redo everything,
Notification.
even though he's only got to wait 3 months.
I do want to, before we go on, I do want to mention that we are at time. If folks we only have, I think, 1 or 2 more pages left of the draft to review, or a couple, actually no, a few more pages. So if folks want to hang tight or if you need to leave, totally understand. Been taking a lot of your time today, and we do appreciate it. So.
I'm gonna go catch up with the Kardashians myself.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Attorney.
Yeah, I'm good, I'm fine.
Okay,
Attorney.
all right, yeah, I can do it.
Wake me when you're done.
Fred.
Let's see, staff report, section 7.7 on page 13. I'm going to defer to Dominique because I don't know if you noticed that. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
I did.
Okay. I'm putting pressure on you because it says that the staff report, if one is prepared and to be filed, be prepared at least 5 days in advance of the public hearing. It also says that you, the board, BZA, may waive the requirement of a written report, may allow an oral report, or may waive the time limitation, or hear the matter with no report. That's just to give you the ability to hear this if you just want to, and for whatever reason, Dominique is in a car accident and can't be here to make a report or what have you. What concerns me is that we're putting pressure on Dominique to have this as a statement of our policy at least 5 days prior to the public hearing.
So that's why I tried to use that entire month from the time that the petition comes in until the public hearing to make sure that I'm thoroughly reviewing the site plan, working with Attorney Hale and other department heads to also develop the staff report as well. So I've been really strict within that time frame because I at least like to have those reviews done, completed staff report to you at least in the entire packet, to you at least 2 weeks before the hearing so that you have the time to review. Yes, does it put a lot more pressure on me to hurry up and push things through and get them done, but I also, again, want to take that entire time. That's why sometimes if we get a petition that isn't quite complete, I'll push off a hearing, right? And to ask for more input and feedback or more additional details from that petitioner so we can make sure that we can develop the staff report appropriately, put it in front of you for review and whatnot as well. So there's also some language in this section regarding that the written staff report in its final form shall be made available to a petitioner or the remonstrator at any time during normal business hours upon request. I kind of would like to restructure some of that language. I've only had one request for a staff report from a petitioner, and while that's good and fine, I think that it has also caused some challenges in our workflow. So I would like to kind of revise that language, either make it tighter, for some various reasons. So
We talked about that. I'll see if there's some language that we can utilize. My concern with this one is that the papers and all of that of the BZA is public and subject to public inspection and so forth. So
When are they part of the public record? When it actually
Well,
goes before the BZA?
I would say not, no.
Okay.
When they're, but what we've talked about a little bit is when it's in final form.
Okay,
So an interim or preliminary or thinking about draft would not be required to be disclosed to the public.
but when it gets scheduled, it should be in final form, and at that point, it should be available to the world.
requested,
And
yes.
I've always said if it's there and it's sitting in the file, and it has been in the past on some occasions, then if they ask for it, give it to them. I mean, what do we care?
I think the only challenge with that is that, so we in that staff report provide our departmental recommendations of yay or nay, right?
Absolutely.
So when it hits that final form and, say that petitioner doesn't agree, they think that their variance or their developmental standard review or whatever special exception use should be approved and that our department is wrong, I feel like that opens us up to wide scale litigation. And at that point, well, that information is out there. So how do we reel it back in?
Well, yours is an opinion, not a decision.
Right. So
Okay, that's a difference. The decision is made by the board. If he's trying to sway your opinion, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. If he's trying to sway the board, that's a little bit different. I think the information should be out there when it's final, and for a couple of reasons. One, we get the information, but two, remonstrators and all that stuff, they may look at all this stuff and say, oh, it's not what I thought it was. And I don't have to show up to the meeting. Or, oh, it's a lot more than I thought it was, and I better show up at this meeting. So yes, I think it needs to be out there for the public.
okay.
My opinion, but
I know,
Thank you, sir.
I know personally too many times I've gotten to the meeting and that's when I get the report. And
Yes.
I a lot of times feel that it's just not right. I'm trying to digest it all, what the petition actually is, and then what your thoughts were, the planning department's thoughts were concerning the whole thing, and to have some days in advance would be.
Dominique has suggested 2 weeks.
now when you say at
Wow.
least 5 days, business days or just continuous days?
I've always thought continuous days.
Okay, which is fine. So you get it to us on a Thursday for a Tuesday meeting, that's the 5 days, which is what
I
Gail
think
tries
that's
to do
fine.
with the common council. And I guess that's a big part of what I'm thinking is the boards and commissions and all that procedure should be as close to the common councils as possible. So you can walk in and, oh, this is like the common council, and I know what's going on, as opposed to, what are they doing?
And so in the 2-week time frame is just for me. I think from my experience, that's just good best practices.
Okay.
And even though maybe I'm sick, right? Or something happens.
Yeah.
That 5 days is like kind of the cutoff limit, right, for me. So I try not to, that's why, you got these materials like a week before. But for me, I try to at least have 'cause with the information and the petitions that come in, they're very heavy. right? There's no way that somebody can take 5 days or a week and have all this reviewed, unless you're doing it from, you're spending your weekend, right? Reviewing this stuff, so.
When you say 5 days, that's when you'll like email it to us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Electronic,
put it
either
in-
electronic
not
or.
put it in the
or-
mailbox.
Yeah.
Not
so-
put it in the mailbox.
No,
No, I'm sorry, not put in the mailbox.
Unless-
I got last, I don't know, I think it was last month's planning meeting,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I got it today, next day, all the findings.
Some people, if they request, can get it in the mail though, correct?
Yes, sir. So, if anything, I put, I'll say you can, the materials are available at our offices to come and pick them up. So, I wouldn't trust this stuff going through the mail, right? Unless I send it,
Yeah.
FedEx, confirmation number. No, this is like the details and the information that we discuss is too confidential to just put out there like that. So, I mean, if you need me to bring it to your house, actually, no. Come pick it up from our offices, please. I like y'all, but boundaries.
I have cold beer.
It's a 30-year retiree.
I don't drink, so.
Stuff.
Cold sarsaparilla?
The next thing is Article 8, talking about decisions, and 8.1 just talks about the motions. I almost repeat this language every hearing
Yes.
for you all.
Yep.
You know what you can do. And then 8.2 just talks about conditions. You can establish conditions. 8.3 talks about commitments. We've never had a commitment that I can remember in the BZA. Sometimes Plan Commission, because there's things that they have to develop, like streets and curbs and gutters and things like that as part of a subdivision.
Now, does that go before the BZA or typically before the Plan Commission?
That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Maybe I
okay.
misspoke.
Would the BZA,
Commitments are mostly, or almost, I've never seen one with the BZA, but once in a while with the Plan Commission.
will the BZA ever get a petition from somebody in a subdivision with, what do I want to call it? Where the subdivision has their own rules?
You mean like HOA?
Yeah, something like that. Or does that actually always go by the Plan Commission?
If a member,
What am I thinking of?
I
Can't think
don't,
of
I'm
what
not
it's called.
sure, but let me just see. If a member of the HOA, and so a homeowner, in a PUD or a subdivision, feels that they've been aggrieved,
Well, not aggrieved, but they want to put an addition on which does not meet the HOA,
code, their
Code.
individual code, private matter, does not
so it has
affect
nothing to
us.
do with us. Okay.
Nothing.
So for example, they would have their own board, right? So that they would have to get that approval and whatnot from. But if, say, they have city services or something like that, that's a different case where we would go out and inspect, right? They can put through a permit or whatnot.
Yeah.
But they would have to get approval from their HOA or their variation of a BZA.
Yeah, for
I would say,
covenants and restrictions.
right,
that's what I'm thinking.
exactly. So, but it would not. But that's they would not put in a petition or anything like that through us. They would have to go through their own.
They might, but
So they have their own
just
design
deny.
standards and whatnot.
Okay.
And so yes.
We've had that come up, I remember one time, actually. They tried to have us enforce their private, and why would we do that? I mean, we have no authority and no skin in the game, as they say, so it would be very inappropriate. But you're exactly right. The next thing is appeals. I just want to say that I am strongly opposed to saying anything other than this, that they may appeal, period. I don't want this board to ever, in any way, written form, part of our rules, or any other way, say, you've got this much time, or here's, you have to file in the Superior Court or the Circuit Court, or you can hire a lawyer or anything like that. We're not lawyers, we're not going to give legal advice, and we should stay as far away from it as we can. The one that was suggested to me was, you've got, 30 days to file an appeal. Well, I don't want to give them that advice, that's legal advice. You may appeal, now you're on your own.
Just tell them, go look at 3674 1000 series.
Yeah.
That's,
And then we can amend our rules, and this just says, affirmative vote of the BZA members at a meeting. Now, at a meeting means a majority. If there's only 4, well, that doesn't work. If there's 3 there, you need 2 votes, and 2 votes makes the amendment. So we want to think about this, put a tick on 10.1 on page 15. Probably it would be better if we said it the same way as decisions on petitions, that it requires 3 votes of the board.
majority of the board. I'll have a question on rules or procedures. Do they need to be on the agenda, or can you introduce them at a meeting?
What do you mean? You mean
Well,
change, or-
I'm at a meeting, and can I just introduce a rule that I want at that meeting under new business, or does the rule have to be on the agenda? Because it doesn't say any place in the code that I can find that rules. It just says they can be
It all
made at
relates,
meetings.
it all relates to your agenda and how you handle your agenda, in my mind. So if you said, I want us to consider adopting this rule, if that is considered to be on the agenda because it's under new business, or is it requiring its own notation? Consider request to change rule 1, 2, 3.
And I guess I'm wondering about notice. If it's on the agenda, the public has notice. If it's not, the public doesn't. So do rules and procedures need notice to the public?
My answer is, I guess the truth is I don't know definitively, but my answer would be that it depends on how you handle your agenda. If you're being strict about it, has to be specified as to what new business is, then I would say, yes, you can talk about it, you can bring it up, but you can't decide on it. It would
Okay.
have to be rescheduled for a hearing to decide whether we change rule 1, 2, 3 or not.
Okay.
That would be my advice.
But if you have it proposed at a one meeting, voted on at the next meeting, since the meeting's public record, the public's been notified.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back, excuse me, real quick,
Yeah.
back to section 8.4, approval and denial. A, is that what it always has been? What we, the rules we always,
I wasn't part of whatever created our current ordinance. And it has a lot of shortcomings. But one of them is how it handles the inability to arrive at a 3-vote decision. And basically what it says right now is that if you have a motion to approve and it fails to get 3 votes, then there should be other motions. Well, that means a motion to deny. And if that fails to get 3 votes, what do? The appropriate thing would be to move to continue it, and that's what we're going to do, hopefully, going forward. But the ordinance says that it's the chairperson deems that there's a motion to approve, and you have a vote on that, and if it receives 3 votes, it's approved. If it doesn't, it's denied. So it's denied on the basis of whatever the shortcoming was.
Well, my question is, the majority of the members of the committee, not just the majority of those present.
Yeah, so in all voting situations, you have two ways of saying how many votes are required. You can say you're required to have a majority of the board. The majority of the board is 3 members. And it doesn't matter how many people show up. If 4 show up, a majority of those present is still 3. But if you have 3 show up, the majority is 2. And the question is, does that carry the day? And in everything that we do, the answer is no, it doesn't. You have to have the 3 votes to make in favor of any decision, whether it's a decision to approve or deny.
Okay, I see that's where you're getting to. Thank you.
So in December, when we had the 2-1 vote, even though it wasn't approved, it was not denied. And that's why it came back to us.
Well, that's what the court said, came back.
Well,
The court said that, yeah.
and again, by code, it was neither approved nor denied, so it was still on the table.
Yeah, that's how we handle it as a practical matter.
Even though we said denied.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to go too far into that. Okay, so then we have, we're talking about amendment. And then we have Article 11, conflicts of interest. And I just threw in here the things that I'm aware of. Dominique, I haven't seen the conflict of interest disclosure form from the city for a long time. I know that we fill out and sign those every once in a while. I think we're supposed to do it annually, but I wouldn't bet on it. And then there are various requirements for our ethical considerations and conflict of interest and all of that. So you need to just, it would be nice if there was some sort of statewide, here are the ethical rules, but there isn't. So we do the best we can. It's supposed to be a financial, obviously, it's happened that lawyers, not in my case, but it's happened that lawyers that sit on some of these commissions have clients that they want to represent or that they are representing that come before them. You gotta step aside and step down, you can't participate. You have to do that. So there are different reasons for having a conflict, and this is trying to set it up.
And one could be, I'm just gonna throw it out, if your neighbor wants to do something, you're right next door and you want to remonstrate against it, you probably cannot sit on the board for
If you're gonna remonstrate, then that's reason to have a conflict.
Right, something like that.
Yeah, I would call that a definite conflict, and that you should step down. You can participate if you want, but I discourage that. It's the same thing if you have a lawyer on a board and now he's got a client who's coming before you and he steps down. Can he represent that client in front of you? Well, to me, that's problematic because sure, he isn't going to be sitting on the dais with you discussing this case and trying to influence you that way, but he's down in front of you, you know him, you sit with him every month, I mean, you share a beer every once in a while. Of course, he's using that extra influence to try and guide your decision, and that makes me be very uncomfortable, and I think it should make the person that's doing that feel very uncomfortable, and so far I've been successful in having him not do it, but it worries me. And the same thing would apply to remonstrance, but not nearly as much. If your neighbor is doing something and you came before this board, you carry weight, and we know you carry weight. We trust your decision making, and so maybe that's not fair.
That or you always lose to me in poker, so,
You all know what I'm saying.
Yes.
yeah.
All right, well, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end? Okay,
Can I go over mine just real quick?
yeah, absolutely.
Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. Does everybody have the handout? If not, there's some on the table. And basically, you know, my first 2 pages are just the rules I've been thinking of. And
Oh,
one of the first things, all of the material that is submitted, I think we should just call a packet. So when a packet is approved, it should go to the board. Packet being the application, all supplemental material and all that stuff. What else do I have?
Is that?
Yeah.
Here.
And you can read it at home. Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things is, I think right off the bat, we should start with a clean sheet and just repeal all previous rules. Since we don't necessarily, I know you researched them all, but are we better off just starting with the clean sheet, repeal everything else, and just put it all here? So 5 years from now, they can go to one document and say, oh, this is where it started.
Good idea.
So that's one idea I have. Robert's rules. And again, I do have in there that the enforcement officer will review it and make sure it's complete before it goes to the board. I do have deadlines in there. And again, I didn't know where the 300-foot setback came from, so I put 100-foot in there. Now, I do have time limits. In H, I show time limits for presenting a petition, any speakers and things like that. I put time limits in there. They may or may not be realistic, and I did put in the board cannot reduce it, so I put 3 minutes in for speakers. Okay, you get at least 3, but the board can extend it.
For the demonstrators or the petitioners for the 3 minutes? I saw, okay.
Any of them.
Okay.
And I also put in there that, okay, if this thing's going too long because you got 25 people that want to speak,
Yeah.
the matter can be continued to the next meeting.
Okay, okay.
Something else.
Would that be triggered by a vote by
Pardon?
the board? Would that be triggered by a vote by the board if it's gone?
If at the direction of the board. So yes,
Okay.
that would be a vote by the board. Yeah. Something else real quick. Members of the board should be called in alphabetical order when voting. And the first for the vote should be the person that voted second in the last vote. This is actually a requirement in the Common Council, which they were not following until I pointed it out to the clerk. And it just makes sense. You have a specific order, and the same person does not vote first every time. So that's why that's in there.
Yeah.
A lot of the rest of it there. One other M, appeal of an administrative decision shall be filed no more, later than 30 days from the date of the decision. Currently, it's 15 days, and 15 days is a very short period if you're going to file an appeal, which probably means you're also trying to find a lawyer.
That might be statutory, I'll have to look at that.
We have other appeals. I haven't found it any place, but I have found that other appeals are set at 30 days. So, and again, I don't know how often that comes up.
Never.
So that's all really for the rules. The next 2 pages are procedures. I guess I should say, I do have definitions in there, and one of them is official meeting. Official meeting is a regular special meeting at which a quorum is present. So, and I also define open comment. It's always been confusing to me where I'm sitting in common council meeting and, okay, we have petition, we have public comment, we have petition, we have public comment. Okay, it's public comment. Well, which public comment is this? Oh, this is public comment that's off the record after everything else is done. I would really like to change that term to open comment, so you know when the business is done and it's actually open to anyone as long as it pertains to BZA business. Just a little bit of definition change. Let's see. On the second page of that, again, repeal all previous procedures, list of procedure, and then presenting petition, which actually came from the minutes of November 9th, 1982, which you sent us a copy of. It's a little bit modified, but it's there. D and E, some things, if there is a request to continue a petition, we go through the normal thing, call to order, roll call, pledge, approval of agenda, approval of minutes. And before we go into any other unfinished business or new business, if this continued thing, if this thing is scheduled for the last one, I think the chair, did I put the chair in there? Yeah, the chair has the power to move this petition up to the first thing in the agenda, so you can, okay, instead of making everybody wait, let's move to the first thing. This thing's going to be continued and all those people can leave. Okay, and the same thing in new business. What's the difference between new business and petitions? Are new petitions part of new business?
They've been listed separately.
They've been listed separately, okay. So I always assumed they were new business. The last thing, open comment, is an optional item. It's not required by any code. It's actually not part of the public record. And I think open comment should be at the discretion of the chair. And the chair should be able to terminate any speaker at any time or terminate public comment at any time.
They do that at the council meetings.
Pardon?
They do that at the council meetings.
Well, that's just it. They do it at the council meetings. I think
Yeah.
we should do that here too.
I want to comment. First of all, I don't think that there's any reason for us to feel constrained to conduct ourselves as the common council does. I feel that our job is much different than that of the council. But as to leaving public comment up to the chair, I would oppose that. I think you want your city to be open and welcome and engaging to all the citizens and make it available to them, and to have, at least in my memory, 20 years of having a public comment at the end of the meeting and all of a sudden saying, we're going to do away with that. I think that would be a mistake. And to give the power to the chairman or the officer running the meeting would grant them at least the apparent authority to cut people off, and I don't think our citizens would enjoy it. At least I'm telling you, those are my opinions.
I think
law.
I don't believe we belong there.
a couple of things on that. My reason for trying to follow the Common Council as much as possible is not because we are them, but to make it easier for people to transition from one board to another board and know what's going on. The other thing, the chair should be able to cut people off if what they're saying, and this has happened, has nothing to do with the BZA. Or
I agree with that.
it's 11 PM and everybody wants to go home.
I think the chair always has, and it's in my draft too, that the chair always has the ability to control the meeting. They run the meeting. And
Okay.
so if things get off whack, the chair has the power to say, we're not interested in tariffs, or we're not interested in this or that subject. It's not part of the purview of the BZA. Or to say, you've been at this for a long time now. We all understand your points. I'll give you a minute to summarize, something of that nature. I mean, each chair is going to handle it his own way. But that gives you the idea that I see as a way to handle the problem. And I would end my comment on this by saying, I've never seen it a problem yet.
No.
So let's not do something that isn't needed yet.
Okay.
Becomes a
Where
problem.
where did this list come from? I understand you put it together, but any
Which list?
particular reason why you put it together? Were you directed to put it together? Are you doing this on your own? You think this is
Well, this
something
is
you
what I
need
was
to
thinking
do?
about doing a year, when I first started when I first got on the board, and I'm asking, the secretary's supposed to hold the rules and procedures and make them available, and we couldn't find them and stuff like that. So I've been thinking about that for over a year and a half.
Okay, so it's just you're
That's
feeling
all.
this is the way you
This is
think we
just
should
my
do our
opinion.
business.
This
Okay,
is basically
okay.
thoughts,
Okay.
okay?
All right, I
Not
just
we
wanted to
need
make
do
sure.
This
Yeah,
is just
thank you.
thoughts to
Yeah.
get discussions going. That's all it is.
All right. Good.
Just things to think about.
Well, I want to wrap up my
Oh.
presentation by just saying, I think this has been terrific. I think those of us that are here should feel really good that we've taken this seriously.
Well, I would have been like this like 10, 12 years ago.
I agree with you.
Yes.
When I first came here, I learned by rote.
Yeah.
When I came here, but you telling me I was wrong.
And again, I think all boards and commissions and organizations within the city need to have something like that, okay, this is actually what we do and how we do it and why we do it. Yeah. The last page on there is more Dominique, but the others too, it's just the BZA annual calendar, and I just put it in there as an appendix. I think I've got good dates for the regular meetings. I don't think there's any holidays, but I know last year.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to figure out, I just made these 15 days unless there was a holiday.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, sir. And we had already drafted the dates. Isabel cross-checked them and said
Oh, okay.
they match up with the dates that we were going to propose to the board for the 2026 hearings. Also, another caveat that I would like to throw in is that these dates or these meeting times are per as needed if there's business that needs to be discussed for the board. So then that gives the board time as well as any of the public time to kind of gather themselves and say, okay, there's business to be heard. There's, a meeting that needs to be, or a hearing that's been scheduled, rather than just meeting just to meet.
Yeah.
So.
I do know on the dates, and I think it was again a common council meeting, but the city was having some event someplace, and so they moved the council meeting from a Tuesday to a Wednesday, and I'm looking at the agenda saying, that's not right. And that's basically the big thing. If anybody knows of anything the city's planning that may be on one of our dates, we should probably reflect that in the schedule.
And if anybody catches anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, I see that we have a hearing scheduled and it's coincides with this or whatever, what have you, just so that I might not catch everything.
Yeah.
So.
We're flexible. We can flow with the go with the
Okay.
flow.
Thank
You know, if you want to
We do
change,
go with the flow.
if you want to change a date, change a date.
Okay.
But if it's good for the city,
Might
it's
have been
good for the people.
painting of the skate park or something on a Tuesday night.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's like, well, this is common council night. No, we're all at the skate park.
Okay. So I would like to wrap this up as we are way over. Are there any additional input, feedback, comments, feedback on this workshop, anything like that?
Next step.
Okay, so, thank you. So in regards to next steps, we will take input and feedback that we have received through this draft, and as well as compile our notes, send that to the board, for review, and have another iteration, prepared to review, at our December meeting. So, and of course, that will be provided to you in advance, to take a look, and we can, again, have another discussion if need be, or move to either vote on the new rules as well as the meeting dates for 2026 in December, or if you say, I think this needs another iteration, we can push this into January for the rules. But I would really like for us to lock down those 2026 meeting dates so those can be
Well, we can call it
Published
special
or
meeting for
whatever.
December.
Yeah.
right. If need be, if that's necessary.
It's,
So,
as long as we know what the first date is, we'll be good.
at January 13th for 2026.
When's the next BCA meeting?
Good question. December.
Nothing this year, I suppose.
Maybe January, maybe February.
For this year, second Tuesday of December, whatever date that is.
But you don't have any petitions, do you?
We don't have nothing.
I don't think we have any petitions at this time. So,
Next year.
It'll be next year.
but what's still, we don't have any petitions for December, but we might have a number for January. So just be prepared for that. So.
Cool. As long as it doesn't snow.
Oh,
Anything
come on,
else?
Fred.
Wasn't that neat? Jeez.
Okay,
What a blizzard. Yeah?
well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for the members of the public that may have tuned in for this. And so if there's any additional inputs or feedback or questions you might have, definitely feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, are we off the record now?
No, not yet.
Mr. Harmon still. Attorney Hill, let's close this out.
Are we in consensus that the meeting is adjourned?
Don't move.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.